USA. For most of American sports history, soccer was the thing the country politely ignored. A sport you played as a kid until the real season started. Something that mattered for about 3 weeks every 4 years and then vanished. So American fans know exactly how they look right now, because the bandwagon is not subtle. They're hosting and they've thrown themselves at it. The opener at SoFi looked less like a football match than a movie premiere. Tom Cruise and David Beckham in the stands, because in America, soccer has finally become an event worth being seen at. Then the team started winning, and you could watch the fan base mutate in real time. The first game, a 4-1 demolition of Paraguay, turned the watch parties feral. But it was the second win, 2-0 over Australia, that did the real damage. It put the US through with a game to spare and made them the first American team to win its opening 2 World Cup games since 1930. And somewhere in those 90 minutes, the joke stopped being a joke. Fans who couldn't have named a starter in May were suddenly talking quarterfinals. The crowd in Seattle got so loud, the manager said his supporters were matching Argentina's, which, for a US coach, is a borderline unhinged thing to be able to say out loud. And now the belief is completely out of the bottle. They think they can win this. The honest catch nobody wants to hear is that to actually lift the trophy, they'd probably have to beat Spain and France, 2 of the best teams in the world. But for the first time ever, an American fan base is having that conversation with a straight face. And that's a genuinely great place to be. Mexico, the loudest, most loyal, most quietly tormented people in this entire tournament, and they've been stuck in the same loop for 30 years. This is a fan base that turns every stadium into a green ocean, travels in numbers nobody else can touch, and treats El Tri like a second religion. They co-host this thing and got to open the entire World Cup, beating South Africa 2-0 at the Estadio Azteca. But then there's the curse. From 1994 to 2018, Mexico reached the round of 16 at 7 straight World Cups and lost in that exact round every single time. They invented a phrase for it, El Quinto Partido, the 5th game, the match they can never reach, and it's become a genuine national wound. Then in 2022, they couldn't even escape the group, which somehow stung even worse. So Mexican fans live in a permanent state of believing this is finally the year, while bracing for the precise moment it all falls apart. As hosts, they've already booked their place in the knockouts. The 5th game is right there. It always is. They want it so badly it hurts to watch. Norway. Norwegian fans are running on pure, uncut euphoria because a whole generation of them has grown up never once seeing this. Their country hadn't reached a World Cup since 1998, 28 years, long enough that most Norwegian fans under 30 have no memory of their team at a major tournament at all. For nearly 3 decades, they watched every World Cup as neutrals, borrowing other people's joy. And now, finally, it's theirs. The team broke through with Haaland scoring for fun, and Norway beating 4-time champions Italy home and away on the way. But honestly, the football is almost beside the point, because the fans have stolen the entire tournament. They've brought a chant called the Viking Row, where a whole stand sits down and mimics rowing a longship to a drumbeat, shouting a deep row, Norwegian for row. It went so viral that members of the Norwegian parliament stopped a session to do it from their seats. Then it followed them to America. Days before facing Senegal, hundreds of them took over the red steps of Times Square and started rowing, directly next to a summer solstice yoga class that was quietly trying to find inner peace, right up until a Viking longship full of Norwegians appeared 3 feet away. This is what 28 years of waiting looks like when the dam finally breaks. A nation that has decided to savor every single second and genuinely does not care who's watching. Dark horses on the pitch. The happiest fan base at this World Cup by an absolute mile. England, the most relentlessly hopeful people in football. And football has spent 60 years using that hope against them. They won the World Cup in 1966. That is the entire trophy cabinet, and they will reference it within about 90 seconds of any conversation. Every tournament opens with "It's Coming Home," a song that is essentially about how good they used to be, sung with total sincerity, and closes with a penalty shootout that visibly ages the entire country. They reached 2 European Championship finals recently and lost both. One of them on penalties, of course, which only hardened the belief that destiny owes them something. And here's the detail that should be against the law. England are now coached by a German, Thomas Tuchel. The one nation whose whole footballing identity is built on heartbreak handed the job to a man from the country that has caused most of it. They breezed through qualifying. They've got a genuinely frightening amount of talent, and tucked away in the back of every English fan's mind is the same little voice that's been lying to them since 1966, gently promising that this, finally, is the year. It never is. But they'll be right back next time, singing the exact same song. Brazil. Brazilian fans are footballing royalty who've spent 24 years refusing to admit the crown's gone missing. 5 World Cups, more than any nation on earth, and a fan base raised to believe they don't just win, they win beautifully. Jogo Bonito. The joy, the flair, the samba. The problem is the last of those 5 titles came in 2002, and the single most defining memory of the years since isn't a goal, it's a scoreline. 7-1. Germany, World Cup semi-final, on Brazilian soil, in front of their own people. A number burned so deep into the culture that you can still end any argument with a Brazilian simply by saying it out loud. And their grand solution to all this? They hired an Italian. Carlo Ancelotti, the first foreigner ever to permanently manage the Seleção, brought in essentially because Europe keeps beating them, and maybe it takes a European to fix it, which is roughly the most insulting sentence you can say to a Brazilian purist. They opened this tournament with a flat 1-1 draw against Morocco that reassured precisely no one. But they've got Vinicius, they've got the most famous shirt in the sport, and they will look you dead in the eye and tell you the real football is about to begin any minute now. Portugal. Portuguese fans have turned defending one man into a full-time occupation, and the man is 41 years old. They've got one of the deepest squads on the planet: Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Rafael Leao, Vitinha, and they'll happily argue about none of it, because every conversation in this fanbase eventually becomes a referendum on Cristiano Ronaldo. Here's how committed they are. He just played 90 minutes in a 1-1 draw with DR Congo without a single shot on target, so when the whistle went, a chunk of the fanbase didn't blame Ronaldo. They went onto the social media accounts of his own teammates and accused them of deliberately not passing to him. That's the Portuguese fan experience in one image: the team's misfiring, and somehow it's the other 10 players' fault. They'll tell you he's still the best striker alive, that he won them the Nations League almost single-handedly last year, and that anyone who mentions the word bench is a hater. And the part they can't escape is that this is his 6th and final World Cup, chasing the one trophy he's never won, so they don't get to be calm about any of it. Portuguese fans can't quite live with the debate, and they will absolutely not live without him. Canada. Canadian soccer fans are the wide-eyed newcomers at this whole thing, and watching them work it out in real time is one of the genuine joys of this tournament. This is a country that, until about 5 minutes ago, treated soccer as something to kill time before hockey season started. Their entire World Cup history was 2 appearances and 0 wins. They turned up in 1986 and lost all 3 games without scoring once, came back 36 years later in 2022 and lost all 3 again. So when they opened these finals at home, the crowd was a perfect snapshot of a nation discovering the sport from scratch, a sea of red chanting "Canada," with hockey superstar Connor McDavid and actor Ryan Reynolds sitting in it, because in Canada, a soccer match is still a novelty big enough to bring a movie star to. And then the newcomers got their fairy tale. In their second game, and led by a Jonathan David hat-trick, they battered Qatar 6-0, the first World Cup win in Canada's entire history. 40 years of nothing, then a 6-goal party on home soil. This fan base still doesn't have the songs, the scar tissue, or the appropriate level of dread the older nations drag around everywhere, but they're learning the best possible version of it first. For now, Canada is just thrilled to be at its own party, and it finally has something real to cheer about. Netherlands. Dutch fans are doomed romantics, hopelessly in love with a team that has perfected the art of beautiful disappointment. The Netherlands didn't just play football, they reinvented it. Total football, the most influential idea the sport has ever produced. And their reward for gifting the world its most gorgeous philosophy, 3 World Cup finals in 1974, 1978 and 2010, and 3 defeats. They are, by a distance, the best team never to win the thing. There's also a long, proud tradition of the squad imploding from the inside, falling out with each other, with the manager, with the formation itself. So the Orange Army shows up in enormous, joyful numbers, paints entire cities, and quietly braces for the inevitable. They've made their peace with the heartbreak, they just can't make peace with how good it all could have been. Germany. German fans are deep in the denial stage of grief, and they're defending it with everything they have. For decades, this was the most reliable machine in football. 4 World Cups, the nation that turned "the Germans will probably win on penalties" into an actual law of physics. Then the wheels came off. Back-to-back group stage exits in 2018 and 2022, something that had never once happened to them before. The clearest sign of the panic is that 40-year-old Manuel Neuer came out of retirement for a 5th World Cup, because the cupboard simply isn't what it used to be. So, German fans spend this tournament insisting the machine is merely between upgrades, that the efficiency is about to switch back on any moment now, clinging to a reputation the last 2 World Cups quietly took away. Spain. Spanish fans are football's hipsters. They cared about possession stats before it was cool, and they would like you to know that. For a glorious stretch from 2008 to 2012, Spain won 3 major tournaments in a row playing tiki-taka, a style built on passing the opponent into a quiet existential crisis. It was genuinely revolutionary and, if we're being honest, occasionally a little boring to anyone who wasn't Spanish. Then came the dry years, and a lot of casual fans quietly wandered off. But here's the thing, they're back. They are the reigning champions of Europe after winning Euro 2024, and they're powered by a new generation like Pedri and teenage phenomenon Lamine Yamal, who plays like he's been doing this for 15 years. Spanish fans carry themselves with the calm superiority of people who believe their way is simply the correct way to play the sport, and the annoying part is that they have the trophies to back it up. They will keep the ball for 90 minutes, win 1-0, and then patiently explain to you why that was, in fact, the beautiful game. And they're not entirely wrong, which is exactly what makes them so insufferable. France. French fans have been handed the most talented squad in the world, and they cannot, for the life of them, simply enjoy it. France is a factory. It produces world-class players faster than it can find places to put them. Kylian Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, Michael Olise, an absurd conveyor belt of talent so deep they leave players at home who would walk into almost any other team at this tournament. They won the World Cup in 2018 and lost the 2022 final to Argentina in what might be the greatest final ever played, a game Mbappé scored a hat-trick in and still ended up on the losing side of. And somehow, through all of it, French fans seem faintly annoyed. They spend tournaments complaining that Didier Deschamps, now in his very last tournament in charge, plays too cautiously, that a team this gifted should be scoring 5 a game instead of grinding out 1-0 wins. There's also a rich national tradition of the squad simply combusting from within. The 2010 team famously went on strike in the middle of a World Cup. So France arrive as one of the favourites, blessed with absolutely everything and perpetually convinced it should somehow be even better. It is the most French thing imaginable. Argentina, by a comfortable margin, the most intense supporters on the planet. And right now, they have every right in the world to be insufferable about it. They are the reigning world champions. They are ranked number 1 on Earth. They won the 2022 World Cup against France. They've won the Copa America since, and they sing about all of it, constantly, everywhere, with a devotion that borders on religious. For most of Messi's career, the joke was that Argentina suffered more than any fan base alive, and then he finally won them the World Cup in 2022, and all that suffering detonated into the loudest, most cathartic celebration the sport has ever seen. This is Messi's 6th World Cup, and it is his last, and he's treating it like a man settling every remaining debt. He opened this tournament with a hat-trick. Days later, he scored twice more and broke the all-time World Cup goal-scoring record. 38 years old, in his final tournament, now the leading scorer in the history of the competition, alone at the top. And the strange, quiet truth is that it isn't only Argentines who feel what this is. Ask a fan of any nation here, even one he's beaten, even one that hates losing to him, and underneath it, they know the same thing. When he finally walks off for the last time, the World Cup is going to feel emptier without him. So yes, Argentine fans are insufferable. They're also living and grieving through the closing chapter of something the rest of us were just lucky to watch at all. Scotland, a fan base that has completely detached its happiness from whether the team wins. The Tartan Army is back at a World Cup for the first time in 28 years, and 50,000 of them descended on Boston and took the city hostage. They drank the bars dry. One owner reckoned they got through 4 times the beer he'd normally sell across a 4th of July weekend. They balanced traffic cones on top of historic statues. They turned an ABBA disco song from 1977, "Yes Sir, I Can Boogie," into a national anthem and sang it until Boston knew the words. Their slogan, plastered across the city, "No Scotland, no party." And here's the perfectly Scottish part. They beat Haiti in their opener. First World Cup match in 30 years, absolute bedlam. Then, days later, conceded after 71 seconds and lost to Morocco. Because of course they did. The football breaks their heart on a schedule. The Tartan Army worked that out a long time ago, which is why they've stopped measuring these trips in results and started measuring them in singing.
Croatia. Croatian fans have spent a decade being quietly, almost unfairly successful, and they've started to expect it. This is a country of 4 million people that reached the World Cup final in 2018 and finished 3rd in 2022, and whose supporters now show up to tournaments not hoping to compete, but fully expecting to. But there's a clock on it, and everyone in Croatia can hear it ticking. The whole thing is built around Luka Modric, the 40-year-old playing his 5th and final World Cup, still gliding around the pitch as if the rules of aging were written for other people. The fans know this is the last act of the greatest generation their football has ever produced. And it began roughly how they feared, a 4-2 defeat to England in the opener, their defending described by their own manager as disastrous. Because that's the thing about Croatia, their World Cup history only has 2 settings. They reach the podium or they crash out in the group, with almost nothing in between. So the fans spend every tournament placed between believing they'll go all the way again and the dread that this is the year the magic runs out. One last ride with Modric, and no idea which Croatia is going to turn up. If you made it all the way here, you're exactly who I make these for. Subscribe, and I'll see you for the knockouts.